Okay, hello, welcome to part 5 of this tutorial on the comparative text analysis for the VCE English exam. And in this tutorial we are going to look specifically at the introductory paragraph that you will use for the comparative text essay. Okay, so in the previous tutorials we've looked at unpacking the prompt, we've looked at brainstorming the key ideas for the prompt, we've written the synonyms, we've come up with our topic sentences, and then we've also looked at what the basic structure of your essay should look like in terms of the format. Okay, so if we just remind ourselves first of all of the prompt that we were looking at, compare how conflict within communities is demonstrated in the two texts, was the one example that we had. Now, if we think about the introduction that we would use for this particular prompt. Okay, if you remember in the previous tutorial, we explained that in the introduction we set out the text, we give the contexts, and we do a sort of similarity and difference in relation to the prompt, and we make sure there's a clear contention. Okay, so how is that going to look if we actually write the introduction? Okay, so let's just break it down sentence by sentence. Okay, the first part is when we give the introduction of the two texts that we're looking at. So here, Arthur Miller's The Crucible and Geraldine Brooks's Year of Wonders present Salem and AM respectively. 17th century communities in conflict. Okay, now importantly here, we are addressing the prompt. Conflict is in the prompt, conflict is in our first sentence. Notice here how we are mentioning the authors, the text titles, and the link to the prompt. Okay, then we come to the second sentence in the introduction. If we read it through, Arthur Miller's allegorical play The Crucible explores this theme by depicting a theocratic community in 17th century Salem during the infamous witch trials. Okay, so I think possibly a key phrase here is explores this theme by depicting. Okay, that's to give the context of the first text. Okay, and then the next sentence is going to be the first topic sentence. Okay, so in Miller's deeply repressed Puritan society, social upheaval and subsequent crisis are shown to undermine and divide the community. Okay, so this relates to our first topic sentence, which we will explore further with evidence. But for the moment, we're just introducing the topic sentence in this introductory paragraph. And again, social upheaval and subsequent crisis are related to the prompt. Okay, and then we come to the next part, which is, on the other hand, Geraldine Brooks's novel Year of Wonders focuses on the threat posed by the bubonic plague in the 17th century English village of AM. Now, this is context of text B. And we look at focuses on the threat, which is a key phrase for that particular sentence. Okay, then we go, Brooks instead emphasizes the capability for a community to be united when faced with adversity. So that is also related to the first topic sentence that we have established is going to be what we use for the body paragraph. In times of conflict, some communities will come together, some will be divided. Okay, and then here it's also comparative. And also perhaps what we can just briefly look at is the synonyms that we wrote down in the first tutorial are starting to find their way into this introductory paragraph. So, for example, social upheaval, subsequent crisis is a synonym for the conflict. Adversity is a synonym for conflict. So we're already starting to use some of the synonyms that we derived. Okay, if we move on, we then start to look at the second and third topic sentences. Just grab this. Okay, so here we have the second topic sentence and the third topic sentence. Further, both texts portray the villainous side of humanity in response to conflict, as Miller and Brooks both present characters who value themselves over the community. Second topic sentence that we established. However, both the playwright and the author also exemplify an individual's capacity to better themselves as a result of a social crisis. Okay, so you can see that within this first paragraph we are laying out the groundwork for the body paragraphs, and it sort of gives you a good overview of how the body paragraphs are going to evolve through the essay. And it's important to notice here that we're staying on track. We're making sure that we are addressing the prompt in many areas of the introduction. Okay, and then the last part of this introductory paragraph is where we give a overview of both. So, despite their similarities, Brooks ultimately portrays a more optimistic perspective to a community's response to crisis, whereas Miller presents a more cynical view. And that's a good sort of way of rounding out the introductory paragraph. So that gives you a good example of how you break down by sentence an introduction that we would use to address this prompt. And again, just to highlight again, it's mainly introduce the text, give the context for each text, and introduce the topic sentences which you've established and which you will then use in the body paragraphs with the evidence. Okay, and then a general overview of the author's stance on the prompt to finish off the introductory paragraph. Okay, let's have a look at another prompt and how the introduction might look for that prompt. Just a second. Okay, so if we remind ourselves of one of the other prompts that we were looking at, uncertainty breeds fear and fear breeds further uncertainty. Compare how this idea is explored in the text. Now, in terms of the introduction, let's just have a look at how we would break down the introduction sentence by sentence. So if you recall just now in the previous example, we introduce the author's text titles and a link to the prompt. So it's pretty similar to the first example. Arthur Miller's The Crucible and Geraldine Brooks' Year of Wonders present Salem and AM as 17th century communities, so exactly the same, but here we refer to the prompt where uncertainty and fear pervade. Okay, and then for the second sentence, if you recall, we were looking at the context of text A, and it's pretty much the same thing. Arthur Miller's allegorical play The Crucible explores this notion by depicting a theocratic community in 17th century Salem during the infamous witch trials. So again, just the keyword, explores this notion by depicting, good language. And then the next sentence was to indicate the first topic sentence. So in Miller's deeply repressed Puritan society, the terror of accusation and persecution leads to social hysteria and a mob mentality. So the mob mentality was one of the what was the first topic sentence. And again, what we see here, the terror of accusation and persecution leads to social hysteria and a mob mentality. So terror is a synonym for fear, one of the synonyms which we first wrote down. Okay, and then we switch to the context of text B. Similarly, okay, now here it's not a difference. So because it's a similar idea, we say similarly. So similarly, Geraldine Brooks's novel Year of Wonders focuses on the threat posed by the bubonic plague in the 17th century English of AM. And then after that, we move to the first topic sentence again in context of Brooks. Brooks also depicts a community gripped by dilemma and dread as it battles an epidemic and consequent hysteria. So here, dilemma and dread, two synonyms for uncertainty and fear, the synonyms which we wrote down. It battles an epidemic and consequent hysteria. So hysteria here is similar to social hysteria up here for the first topic sentence, which we're going to introduce. Now, the next thing that we do in the introduction is introduce the second topic sentence that we're going to use, that we already established, and the third topic sentence. So, further, both texts portray the villainous side of humanity in response to uncertainty and fear, as Miller and Brooks both present characters who exploit the opportunity for gain, revenge, and self-interest. So that is the second topic sentence, which we had already brainstormed. And then the next part is, however, both the playwright and author also exemplify an individual's capacity to demonstrate great courage despite their fear. Okay, so linked back to the prompt with the fear idea is the third topic sentence. And then the final part of the introductory paragraph is the general stance of the author in respect of the prompt idea. So here we might say something like, despite their similarities, Brooks ultimately portrays a more optimistic perspective to a community's response to uncertainty and fear, back to the prompt, whereas Miller presents a more cynical view. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how you would write your introductory paragraph, but it's following the same kind of elements that should be included. You introduce the author, the text titles with a link to the prompt. You give the context of text A and the first topic sentence as it relates to text A. You give the context of text B and then the first topic sentence as it relates to text B, and then you introduce the second topic sentence and the third topic sentence, and then finally a more general overview or stance of the authors in respect of the prompt idea. Okay, so I hope that gives you a better idea of what you include in your introductory paragraph. Okay, we will come back with another tutorial which goes into the body paragraphs. Okay, thank you.